Hey everybody, welcome to Cheeseology with Adam. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to start introducing meat videos on my channel. If you've seen any of my cheese videos, you might have seen this meat grinder and sausage stuffer behind me. Today we're going to start with the Soppressata. Soppressata is a great dried Italian meat. It ferments, so I'll go over the ingredient list. I'll show you what kind of meat we're going to use and everything you'll need, and then we'll go from there. If you are a cheese maker and you have a cheese aging space set up, for this meat you'll need a chamber for the meat to dry in. So the cheese chamber or cheese cave will work perfectly for that. So we'll get started here in just a minute and we'll dive right in. A complete list of ingredients along with the links to purchase them can be found in the description of this video. But as you can see from this picture, we're going to need hog casings, dextrose, which is a form of sugar, salt, crushed red pepper flakes, white pepper, Insta Cure number 2 curing salt, and then also we will be using non-fat powdered milk. As far as meat, we'll be using 4 pounds of pork butt and then 1 pound of pork back fat. Okay, the first meat that we'll be working with is the pork butt. We need 4 pounds of pork butt for this. We'll get more than that out of this, but the first thing we need to do is debone this. So we'll get this deboned and then we'll get it trimmed up real good and we'll go from there onto our back fat or pork belly, whichever you want to use. Because as I said, we need 1 pound of that for this recipe as well. When you're deboning, you just kind of want to follow the bone, just take your time, and you're just kind of carving as close to the bone as possible all the way around. You'll have to turn it a few times to get to where you want to be. Also, on the back of a pork butt, you're going to see the skin here, this big slab of fat. We want to trim that off as well. We do want fat in this. That's why we're adding the pork belly or back fat, but we want to get rid of this kind of fat here. So when we trim this off, it's easier to trim this off before you debone because the pork butt's more stable. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm just going to take my nice sharp knife and we're going to start taking this skin off. Okay. All right. That's good enough for this. We got the majority of it off. Okay, now we want to start deboning. There we go. There's some people that can probably get a little bit cleaner than that, but that's okay. I'm good with this, and got the bone out. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to cut this up, trim it up. So we want to get rid of any hard pieces of fat, like extra fat like this. We don't want any gristle in there or anything, any kind of blood clots or anything like that. Don't have to be super particular, but I want to just make sure we're putting quality meat into our grinder so we get a quality product. Okay, we have our pork cut up. We will cut up our 1 pound back fat and we'll go from there. We do want to weigh out our 4 pounds of pork butt, and then the rest you can put in the freezer. Okay, now that we have our pork butt deboned and cut up, now we're going to take our pound of back fat and we're going to cut that up. back fat is grinder ready. Okay, now that we have our pork butt cut up to weight out to 4 pounds, and we cut up our back fat 1 pound, now it's time to start grinding. Now for soppressata, you want the meat portion of the grind to be a little bit more coarse than the fat. That's very traditional with soppressata. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start grinding. You can see I have my grinder set up here. I have the larger plate set up, installed, and we're going to start grinding. What I like to do is run a little bit more back through it, because there's going to be pieces in there that didn't come all the way through because there's nothing pushing it. So I just run some more back through just to make sure that all the meat is ground. And then when I change out this plate for a little bit smaller plate for the fat, I'll get all the rest of that out of there. So now what we'll do is we'll change our plates and we will put our fat through. I put a smaller plate on there as opposed to the wider hole one that I used for the meat. Make sure it's seated correctly, and then we can put our retaining ring back on, and I'll grab my fat. Okay, we have our fat. We're going to start grinding this now. All right, our fat is now ground. I'll take this apart. I'll get the remaining fat out of this chamber here, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to take our teaspoon of our culture. The starter culture we'll be using for this meat is FRM 52. This is a starter culture. This will work on the dextrose that we're adding to create acid that will help protect against unwanted bacteria in the meat as it ages. We're now going to dissolve our culture, FRM 52, in the ½ teaspoon into a ¼ cup of distilled water. Once we do that, we're going to add all our other ingredients to the meat, and then add the culture that we rehydrated, and then we're going to mix all that up with the meat. Okay, now as we're letting this rehydrate, we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. So we'll measure those out per the recipe in the description, and we'll add all those, and then we're going to mix it all up. You can see here I've added all my ingredients, the list from the description of this video. And now we're going to start mixing this 5 pounds of meat. 4 pounds of pork butt, 1 pound of back fat. And you want to mix it until it's very thoroughly mixed together. It'll start to get sticky. Once it's mixed in real well, it will look like this. Now what we're going to want to do is prepare our sausage stuffer. As you can see, the sausage stuffer I'm using is an upright vertical sausage stuffer. The canister just tilts back, and then I can put all the meat into that chamber. And when I crank down on that handle, it will come out the tube that is in my hand. Okay, what we're going to do now is I have all the meat, the soppressata mixture, and my sausage stuffer. Now we want to get the casing onto the tube here. The best way to do this, if you're new to sausage making, is get a little bit of the fat and meat and smear it all on there, or else you're going to be here struggling trying to slide it on there. If this is lubed up right or correctly, it should slide on pretty easy. It should not be difficult. So, first few times I did this, I learned the hard way. It was very frustrating. So it's a million times easier if you just put a little bit of meat and fat on there. Now I have one long casing right here. I don't know if we'll need all this, but we'll see where we get to. I would like to break this into 2 lengths. This is a small batch. I would like to do 2 links of the Soppressata. Before we put our casing on, we want to get the air out. So we're just going to start cranking the sausage stuffer down a little bit. And there we go. Okay. Now we'll put our casing on. Go nice and easy, exactly the way it should. It should not be hard to get on. It should slide right on there, real nice and easy. Alright, I'm going to leave a little bit dangling there because I am going to tie off the end with some butcher's twine. Take some butcher's twine. I just keep it setting up there, makes it easy. So a good way to do this, the way I was taught, is tie it like that, and then flip this little piece over, the little tail, and then tie it again, and tie it again. And that should be good. All right, now the fun part. We're going to start filling up our casing. Now if you've never done this, you don't want to just let it fly off. You want to let it expand a little bit in the casing. You'll get a feel of it after you do it a few times. But you can make these pretty thin or thicker. I keep a little resistance on here just so it fills up and expands to about 1 inch. Okay, I'm about halfway through that. I'm going to pinch this off and cut it so we can make 2 links. And there's 1 link. Now, as we age this, it will straighten out, and it'll be a beautiful long Soppressata link, and we'll see that later on. There's 1. Then we have to tie off the other end again. Okay. Then we'll fill up the other one. Actually, I might get 3 out of this. And I will. Okay, so what we want to do, now that these are stuffed, is we want to let these ferment for about 12 hours in a room that's preferably around 80, 85 degrees. That might be difficult to find in your home, but you want it, the warmer it is, the better the bacteria will work. So as you can see, we have 3 wonderful, what will be straight Soppressatas. Very happy with this. So what we'll do is we'll now hang these, and then we'll come back tomorrow, and then we will put these in our aging space. Before we put them in our aging space, you want to weigh these. Once you weigh these, you want to mark that down on a tag, and I'll show you that all tomorrow. But we want to mark that down on a tag, and then what we want to do is put them in our aging space, and when each one loses about 30% of its weight, then it's ready to eat. Right now, as we hang these to ferment in our warm area, we're going to take a sanitized pin and just kind of poke holes all over these just to make sure there's no air pockets. It'll also help with the drying process. So you want to get a sanitized pin, or if you have a sausage pricker, that's fine. Just make sure it's clean and just make a bunch of holes all over these, both sides, and then hang them in your warm area, and then we'll continue to the next step after our fermentation for about 12 hours. Okay, I've let the Soppressatas ferment for about 12 hours. Then I weighed them in grams, recorded that amount, and then I did the math to find the target end weight, which is just 30% reduction in that initial weight. So you want these to lose 30% of their weight for eating. And I just have these in what I use for a cheese aging space. So I do have another video on setting up an aging space. Same concept as aging cheese. You have to control temperature and humidity. For this, I have the temperature at 65 degrees and then the humidity at about between 65 and 70%. It will take about a month to get down to the weight I want. If it's a little bit more humid, in your aging space. It might take a little bit longer, but just keep an eye on it. You can weigh them once a week, and once you hit that 30% reduction in weight from the initial weight, you are ready to clean off the outside mold and eat them. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you've learned something, and happy cheese and meat making.